And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are live here on what we are calling this evening Niagara Voices. And I am joined in studio. By the way, my name is Peter Green, known as the Mystic from Edge of the Falls. But we are joined in studio tonight by two guests who've been with us before. On the left, community leader and member of the Peacekeepers and involved in so many things here, Donta Myles.
Hey, good evening.
And on the right is Johnny Campanella, journalist and member of the community here in Niagara Falls.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Hope you're having a good night.
And welcome to Niagara Voices. Gentlemen, let's take it away.
All right.
What's going on, Johnny, man? Listen, hey, we
Yeah, what's up?
start off. We got plenty of stuff to talk about.
Oh, yes. Never a dull moment right now.
Right. Well, again, appreciate you guys for tuning in and
Yes, it's going to be very interesting.
very interesting. And feel free to chime in because we don't want to just talk to ourselves. We
Right.
have a nice
We want calls. We want
Well,
topics,
we like talking
opinions.
to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, that too.
And the telephone line to call in, I know it's on the screen, but sometimes people can't see it. 716-236-5688.
All right, man, Johnny. Hey, man. So what you want to start off with, man?
Well, let's see.
Let's see where we want to go with this.
Well, we were talking about earlier. We were talking about like a situation that happened that involved violence, and it was something that could have been prevented and had nothing to do with the plot of why they were protesting. But a man was helping a trans woman in Portland, which is a very volatile area. It's like day 80 something of their protesting, but he was trying to help a trans woman who was getting attacked, and he got attacked as well as his wife. His wife got tackled to the floor. He was in the car. He drove away, leaving her because he was being attacked. He didn't run anybody over, but he crashed on his way down the street trying to get away. And then he got out of the car. The guys caught up with him. They threw him on the ground. They were yelling at him, saying you try to hit people, and he just wanted to call his wife. He was terrified. You see a human being in terror, and then all of a sudden it cuts and it shows a guy run up from behind and kick him in the back of the head, knocked him out. He was bleeding from the head and the mouth, partly from the car accident, partly from what happened to him. And eventually his wife ran up, came there, and was crying. People started, there was good people there though that were helping him and that were telling people to call 911. And then they were trying to rob things from his truck, and his wife was screaming, that's all he has, please don't do that. And people were helping her and him out by protecting the truck. And the people who did hurt him, they were just laughing. And it just seems like, especially in Portland, they're literally, people are just not seeing what the true cause is. And no matter what you're fighting for, violence will never change anything because, like I was saying earlier, we as human beings, the only thing that separates us from animals is that we can actually use our brains and talk and communicate, and that's why we need, our
And we
intellectuals.
don't run from a vacuum cleaner. I just thought I should point that out.
Right.
And it's 2020. If we're the smart species, right, and we're the top of the totem pole, why can't we? It's fine to express your emotions, to cry, to scream, to really let yourself, but once you get violent, that's like that primordial instinct that in you, and we as humans have that quality to be able to speak and talk about it,
Right.
And and of course the police weren't there because it's Portland, they but it still makes me laugh when certain people do things that are against 100%, they're 100% against police, and then they're like, they try to call 911, and it's like, but what you know what I mean?
Right.
But I just wanted to say how just the violence and hurting someone of any race, for a cause is just not going to work. It's not going to help. It's a toxic thing to do. And I hope that, you don't want to see anybody get hurt. Like if you watch that video and you don't feel sick and like you can't put yourself in that place, then I don't know what to tell you. And then you also have to look at the other side of the people that are hurting him and where their hate or their anger comes from. And I always wish I wish they would have had someone there or found a way to better express their feelings and to deal with this problem full on instead of resorting to violence, I guess you could say.
Point. And your passion is obvious in that.
Right. I'm not for violence at all.
And true story is that we have to, when these things happen, it's a mental health problem.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Like when somebody feels comfortable just kicking someone in the head, and the person that's videotaping is just as twisted and demented as the person that's doing it.
Right.
Like unless you're videotaping as like trying to help a person, if you're one of the people that's out there, and we've seen it, you know, the first thing they pull out the camera, oh my goodness, look, oh they're fighting, hey,
your instinct isn't to go help, it's to film.
Like, it's like, you know, so that's one of the biggest things that I like to talk about is you know, we have to look at, you know, the person and not group of, you know, a group of people, you know what I'm
Individuals.
saying, into, you know, some bad behavior, you know what I'm saying, of a single person. When somebody got out, you know, and I speak that way, even when it came down to the police, we all understand that all police aren't bad.
Right.
We get it. You know what I mean? You know, it's just that even with that case, you want to make sure that who's the person that's responsible for all of this negativity, that they're dealt with accordingly.
Right.
Same way in any situation, you know what I mean?
Right.
Hate is hate, you know.
And you were saying earlier, you know, for example, the terrible death of Cannon, what was his last name? I don't want to.
Well, the young boy.
The young boy who was shot, you know, people are trying to, we were talking earlier, to compare if that was a black child and a white man. But you can't look at things like that, and we have to stop. We have to look at everybody as an individual and stop grouping them together by, like you said, Donta, about, you know, their race, gender, religion, culture.
Right.
We have to realize that no matter what's going on, everyone is still an individual, and it doesn't mean like if someone who's white or, you know, that's crazy, I'm going to just automatically believe and go with what they say. And vice versa. Like mentally, like you should be able to have the intelligence to be able to say that's not right. And you should just, I mean, it's a general thing to know that treat others as you'd like to be treated, and also to not believe someone just because they're the same color as you or the same religion as you, because we are all individuals, and we have unique likes, right? I mean, we also have different things,
right? And but you know what? That's what helps sharpen us. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's I think if people got more concerned with growing and having like growth, as opposed to, you know, just trying to prove a point or just trying to, you know, get their personal agenda across. But, you know, honestly, like I always say, you know, listen to get an understanding. You know what I mean? So why
take the time to acknowledge, listen,
right?
And no rebuttals. That's the thing,
right? Because that's what happens. Some people listen to give a rebuttal or to try to drive their point home.
You can tell when they're like, you could just tell when you like don't even, you know, you're just like, I'm not gonna talk because I can already tell you're gonna tell me the same, you know, the rebuttal, instead of listening to the individual situation. We have to take everything to, you know, we have to make things and not combine them, and then that makes it more difficult to even get past that. But
the whole concept for what we decided to do tonight, and there's a number of people joining us right now, and the concept was that each of us is a different or unique voice within our community. And we've spoken with Donta. He's been very instrumental in how we're expanding our community reach through this company. What's happening?
Sorry, no, I got it.
Oh, that was you?
Yeah, I have my phone on a different thing, and I'm watching on the computer screen. I'm watching our...
And remember, if you're out in the audience, that what you're hearing is about 25 seconds after we say it.
Right.
So it sounds like there is a delay.
If we don't answer your comment right away, don't think we're being rude, because I even thought that when I was watching a show on here. I was like, oh,
right.
They ain't talking
Barb
to me.
Bolin piped in here on Facebook and said, don't categorize individuals based on disability either. And there are all these areas in our society. I think when Donta said this a moment ago, it sharpens us. We have to be better. We always have to improve. So this entire conversation, and I wanted to kind of pipe in with this, because there's a number of people listening right now. Have you got a take on our community? How do we heal? How do we listen? And how do we exchange with each other what our life experiences are, so that we can live together without, as you said, Johnny, resorting to violence?
And you know what? One of the big things is just trying to get an understanding of who who isn't like you, who doesn't practice the things that you practice.
Go looking for that.
Right, you know what I mean? Because what happens is it just makes us more well-rounded as a person. Instead of, me trying to press how I feel or what I think or what I may believe off on you, maybe you have a different level of understanding. Like, I give and it's probably like kind of a shout out or, kind of a plug, but a god sister of mine, JoJo, she's a yoga teacher, and she put a video out on Facebook on how she had left Christianity and became a Buddhist, and it wasn't to bash Christianity, but it was just the different experiences that she experienced through life, and when she chose to take her journey to a different direction,
right?
You know what I mean? It just shows that she was okay and open with understanding how others think and how others may believe, and it actually helped her out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I think overall, this period, even here in our wonderful city of Niagara Falls, if we just take that type of time out to say, okay, it's not about what I think or what I believe. Because I have no problem expressing how I feel, and I'm always open for, intellectual or just casual dialogue. But I'm, of course, I
with some maturity and
definitely have to be mature. I'm not gonna, do senseless debates. It's just one of those things where it's like, hey, please challenge what I'm saying, but just know that in a respectful way, but know that I did the research before I actually posted.
Right. And it's not just like an opinion, it's an educated, opinion. It's an educated opinion, and it's coming from a place where you took the time to really, know your facts.
Absolutely. What's up, John? I see you, bro.
Yeah. Hey, John, how are you? Hey, Barb.
Steino, there's another good voice in our
Everybody
community.
watching, make sure you call in the number, which is
716-236-5688.
And
do
you
I have a radio voice?
Yeah, that's
you do, brother.
This is what we need to do. We'll get a radio station afterwards. We'll be good. Right over the falls.
Tonight, the latest hit from Donta Myles.
Because my other idea I had, and this guy said it was good. This really wealthy guy, he's like, I wanted to have a strip club right over the falls, and the glass could be see-through, but you can't see in it, but they can see out, the people inside. And that would be a great tourist spot. But, we can have a radio station above it. I don't know. We'll have a whole thing about that.
Sin and skin at the falls.
Yeah, that's good. But, but if you call in, we would love that. And you can talk. You can just say, hey, if you want to bring up a conversation or a question you have about anything. It doesn't exactly have to be about what we're talking about. But if it is about Niagara Falls and what we can do, that'd be great. I wanted to add to what the point you were saying, Donta, when Peter, you brought up how do we go about getting out and talking to different people with different experiences, and I feel like that's kind of almost like we have to find establishing a safe place and a place where we can all, people that have that intellect and want to have that talk or debate or just understanding can go to, and freely, of anybody of any belief, race, and as long as you're respectful and you can talk about things with a educated opinion, then that I think that would be best, especially for maybe for my generation and mine and your generation we are like the ones right now, and then it'll be Gen Z. But right now, we could really get people together. And
all right, so who's who here, Johnny? Are you a boomer? No, I'm a boomer. What are you, Johnny? Are you a millennial?
I'm what do they call it? Like, I'm an elder millennial. I'm like literally, I was like, I'm right after your generation
X.
I'm literally like the start of the millennials. I don't consider I just hate the term because I wasn't born in the 2000s. I was born in 92. I kind of wish we were like generation like Y or something. Like, I don't know why they went right to millennial. I feel like if anything, they should have made generation below me millennials, because they mostly grew up in the 2000s, and that's what people think automatically. But I also feel like the early millennials, we don't necessarily agree or associate that well with the younger millennials too. Like, we are in like a middle of that, of Gen X and Gen Z. So
and Donta, you said you're Generation X, right?
I'm Generation X, but I'm a millennialistic thinker. Hey, what's going on, Robin? I see you.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. I that's the one. Like, I do think like that, but then I also Like, also, I just wanted to grow up. Like, I wanted, if I could have been born in '82 and then been a teenager in the '90s, oh, that'd have been great. Like, graduated whatever.
The golden
just
years.
that,
Wait
anyway.
until you're at my age when you say I was born in the 50s.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so there you go. Yeah.
You know what?
I know now we're in
What
the
was that,
20s.
Dante?
I'm just offering, because a lot of people, when I post, and sometimes my post can be a little not over the edge. It's a little rough around the edges.
Me too. Hello.
Abrasive.
Well, we have a lot of things in common. This is perfect.
Right. So, so I'm really inviting anybody to call in. You can call in and ask me pretty much anything except for my personal life. Like, that's none of anyone's business. But,
Right.
hey,
I think
Patty.
I
That's
shared
available on the website.
I share too much. Hey, Patty. I share a bit too much sometimes. I've learned to keep things myself. But if anything's personal, it's really a post of, like, sincerity. My intention and is sincere in my heart. And I mean, I've had issues sometimes, even recently, with posting things of, like, does anybody want to hang out or talk or go swimming? And sometimes it's turned into, like, are you using people to go swim? I'm like, no, I'm trying to think of ideas to do in the summer because I love summer. And I'm trying to, I know we're adults. I'm at that age range where I'm 28, just turned 28 last month. And, everybody's, we're growing up. People have children now and people are married. And for those who are single and who don't have kids, it's a very difficult thing to wrap your head around and to realize that 100%, like, but then sometimes you're like, oh, wait. Because just a few years ago, everybody wasn't in that situation. But,
Right.
I want, like, for mental health wise, what we were talking about, the past 2.5 years, I've just really been a homebody. And I've seen one person. That's it. Like, really, speaking of friends, not family, friends, I've just seen one person for the past 2.5 years, and I haven't really done anything. And I've changed my ways. I used to really party, and by the time I was 21, I didn't want to drink anymore, and I really don't drink. But you know what I mean. By the time I was 21, I was just but I slowly got out of that phase 3-4 years ago, and now that I'm, I'm more mature and I'm understanding, it's still hard to not, you go from having a good amount of friends and a trillion acquaintances to, like, no acquaintances and a few true friends.
Yeah.
And that really plays it, huh?
I don't throw that word around lightly at all. Friends,
right? I don't either.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, because but the friends that I don't have any beef with my friends. I just, there's some misunderstanding, or what I got to realize is that also when people go through things, and I'm realizing this, not everybody's like me, and not everybody needs their friends with them, or even wants them around, because they heal and get themselves better and on track sometimes without the things I want, like without friends or without a lot of people around and have their own space. And I've been so to myself lately that I'm, like, literally dying for any social interaction and to see people. So, but I really appreciate the time, spending time with friends. I appreciate people so much more now.
Right.
And, but mental health, like I said, especially during this whole COVID, so many people are committing suicide. Children are even very depressed because there's no repetition, there's no structure. Because I need to get a better structure. Structure is such a positive thing in life, and but mental illness is also driving potentially these things going on with protests and people.
That's a subject. Not to interrupt you.
No,
Johnny,
you're fine. I wanted someone to.
That is a subject that one of the other podcasts is actually going to be tackling.
Really?
A new podcast coming out in the next few weeks. But right now, we've got a couple of questions that came up on
good.
Facebook. Barb Bolin wanted to remind everyone to fill out the census. We can lose a lot of resources.
Good
money,
reminder.
Representation, etc. And also to vote, leading to Robin Ristino. What do you guys think of the current presidential election? So I'm going to start with Dante. And do you have a take on that? Is it something you want to share?
Well, I believe, and I say this with conviction, I do believe that we're still, and it's sad that we have to, we're picking from the lesser of two different evils. No one has any real, like, a clean record in there. You can find something on everyone. I'm still. You still have to. I have to wrap my mind around it. What do I think? I think that there's a great possibility that the guy that's in office now may end up doing a second term.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna keep it A100.
Right.
Here's the thing. Here's where my head is at, because I feel like the United States has turned into one big reality TV show.
Well put.
Yes.
And what happens is we, the people, take the bait. And what I mean by that is Trump is the shiny tool that's just in the midst and in front of everybody, that's making the noise, that's tweeting every day, foolery and all kinds of craziness.
Shouldn't tweet.
Right. And getting into senseless arguments with people, who, don't matter. But here's the big thing. We don't pay attention to the behind the scenes, the legislation that's being written, and
the important,
the people who are really making it. Because some people think that, our president is running
no,
the country.
There's so many people behind him, and that's why I dislike when people put it all on one person.
Because it's an army of people. When you're talking about Senate, you're talking about Congress, you're talking about the people who are behind the scenes, who can bring different laws to him. And guess what? If he's not versed enough to even understand what these laws represent, he's probably gonna just sign it off. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I try not to look at a person, and we mentioned this earlier. I'm not a fan of the whole I'm for this person or I'm for that person. I like to see what they're, and it's kind of hard. It's I vote. I take my kids to vote. You know what I'm saying? When I vote, you know what I mean, so they can understand, the process and this right that people fought and died for me to be able to do thus. With that being said, I think I focus more on our local elections, because that matters personally and directly affects us. I think we get so caught up on this federal, tip, where it's the money of federal elections and the federal political process is so far away from us that, you know what I mean? Yes, vote. Do that, because that's what you should do. But I think at some point we have to become more engaged with our local politics, because these are people that you can go
actually have a chance at doing something and see them.
Then you can talk to them directly. And as a lot of people know, I have been notorious for going to City Hall and not just giving a piece of my mind, but actually just really expressing, when you speak on behalf of the community and when you speak for the good of the community, just keeping our local officials accountable. So, so I think that's the thing that we have to. So as far as, I guess I want to go back to, I'm sorry, this is a long answer.
You're fine. I talked.
but far as the presidential election, there's just it's a lot of riffraff right now. I'm not voting for Trump. I'm sorry, just my gut and my. I'm just now. That's if that's what anyone wants to know. I mean that's so, but I'm not a fan, or I'm not on this Biden train. It's just like
that's just two evils, like you said.
Right. Yeah. I'm just voting for what would be considerably the less of two evils, and it's still not a fair thing for the citizens of the United States that we have to do that. You know what I mean? And but you know what has to happen is that we have to fight the system like that. You have to fight and really bond together.
Who's in charge,
You know what I mean?
John Restino has put an opinion up here, and if you do put comments, we're trying to read them out. And John's comment is excellent. You can't hang on. All of a sudden, everyone else started commenting here. Bear with me. I'm just going to bring that up again, because John wrote down that, in my opinion, you can't win an election when you vote against a candidate and not for the candidate. And he adds that the Biden campaign has no excitement. I mean, you look at the last election, and there's a tremendous sentiment that more people voted against Hillary than voted for Trump, so to speak. And now you've almost got a reversal of that it's like the lesser of two evils. But, one of the things I remember is that President Trump is not a politician. We're
Right.
expecting him to be a politician.
Right.
Say the right things that make us happy, but I am not a huge supporter of Mr. Trump in sense of I don't like his style in a lot of things, but he's the president, and he is not a politician. And the last 4 years, we've gotten used to the fact that when there's not a politician in the White House, you can get some shaken up.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
definitely that. I think the thing is that I don't want a pawn in the White House,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and that's so for me. I'm not saying that he's, I don't know the man, and guess what? Pretty much, let's be honest, most of us around here never met the guy day in our lives. You know what I'm saying? So for me to pass a judgment on his personal character and not know him would be an unfair assessment. With that being said, I still don't want a pawn. And at the same token, I mean, there is a level of shaking because and I agree with you on that, Peter, because he's not the polished, and I think that's I will actually go out on a limb and say I think that's the part that I like most about
I was
him.
gonna say exactly that.
He's not polished,
Right.
Because
he speaks at least from almost a person instead of a politician.
Right,
Even
right.
Even though he can
He's
have
a
crazy
CEO.
opinions.
He's used to running
Right.
the show.
right. So
Right.
I think the part of if there was a part that I would say that I like about Donald Trump, and you hear that this is live, I did say there's a part of him that I do like about him, is that the
That's
fact
good.
that he's not, he's not that polished politician, and that's the same thing with. I think that's the part that resonates with me because even with me, being in the political world per se,
Right.
I'm not polished either. And someone actually came to me
Right.
when I was running, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, you're not polished, and I'm like, actually,
what
I'm
is-
glad. I don't want anyone rubbing me." So
Polish,
Exactly.
yeah, polish. I feel like, especially also when you're an actual good person and you are trying to be a politician, I feel as though if you truly are a good person and don't give in to having to do the dirty things, you don't make it to the point where you could become a potential president half the time. You know what I'm saying? Because your heart, if you truly are good within your heart and you want the best, I feel like that's when the good guys don't win because. It's all about the money, the power, and about keeping the rich people still rich. So if you're an average person, normal person, and you're running and you have good ideas, it all depends still on the electoral votes as well, and getting to the other generations to understand too, because that becomes an issue. I'm sure when we're the oldest generation, the younger one, it'll be like this. How come they don't understand? It's so simple, but to them. It always changes, but I like what you said about how Trump isn't polished because we need someone. I mean, it's good to at least have someone who can speak English. You know what I mean? In a sense of speak the truth.
Plain English.
Yes, without without using political terms or jargon, and just being able to say it straight. Now, it'd be just so nice if we could have someone just like that, but with a less of a temper or wanting to go on Twitter. First of all, presidents shouldn't tweet, number one. I feel like politics should have nothing to do with Twitter, to be honest, or social media, because it's just that's such a toxic place and things can get really bad from there. But what was it? I lost my train of thought. Oh, no. I just think that if we could, the one thing I hope it's good, but I like how he went to North Korea, he went to Russia, and he seems to, at least from
He calls meetings.
right. It seems like at least he's talked to them, the threats we kind of had, we thought with North Korea. I feel like he can talk to them on a person basis, not political, maybe, and maybe that's a refreshing thing for them. I hope, or
Well,
any other country, is a.
Do you remember when when Mr. Trump announced that he was running for office?
Right.
I was in Philadelphia, lying in a hotel room, watching the morning news, and they announced that he was going to run. And my reaction in the room, I laughed out loud, and I said, "This is going to be fun."
right.
And then he actually surprised everybody. And there's a lot of America that wanted that. But what happened was that as he got into power and he dealt with things, he deals with them very differently. First of all, speaking
Right.
English. Try being Canadian. Our prime minister speaks English and French.
Isn't he really young? Isn't he
Yeah, he's young, good looking, But his father was the prime minister many
Oh.
years ago. But
was
with
an easy
Mr.
win.
Trump, he speaks very plainly from in his own language.
Right.
And when, like, think of
Which can be rough.
You mentioned North Korea. What was he doing with Kim Jong-un? What was he doing? I can speak a little Korean, but I can't pronounce the man's name. Komsamida. Anyway, what was he doing? He was calling him the Rocket Man, and he was making fun of him. And then all of a sudden he goes and meets with him. But that's the one thing. He is very different, and we have a very different flavor in the White House. My big argument right now about governance in the United States, and Patty Hayes, yes, keep God in America.
Absolutely.
Because God is part
100%.
of our foundation. But my big thing with the government now is that I'm embarrassed, outraged that the House broke for recess, leaving no solution to the stimulus package, leaving a lot of people hanging.
Right.
You know, do I go back to work or collect more money? I don't know.
But this was something no presidential candidate ever thought they'd go through. This whole.
But the president has been at least in the fight, and our congressional leaders just take off on recess. The American people should be their priority.
Right, and that's what I was talking about before. You know what I mean? Like, those are the people that are, and I seen it happen in the Obama administration as well. They didn't show up. You know what I mean? At a certain point in time. You know?
Right. People, 100% with that.
I want to actually, Patty.
Yeah, the question.
She said, I don't like how the divide is in this country, and how do we stay united? I had mentioned something earlier. And there is a divide, not just in the country. Let's talk about the divide that's right here in our city.
Yes.
In the small city of Niagara Falls. There are walls of communication, and I may have mentioned this on our last show. There are walls of communication that are built up, and how the genesis of these walls that have been built up, I can't tell you where it started. But I can tell you, and it's most likely probably before I ever was born. But however, with these walls, how do we how do we stick together? First of all, we have to come together first before.
As humans, as individuals.
Because we won't be able to stay united until we actually unite. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we have to do. We have to talk from one side of the town to the next, from one religious belief to another, from one race to another, from one gender to another, from one ideology to another. However we feel, like, you know what I mean? And we're all different. And
not be afraid, too. I guess that's hard, because a lot of people are like, well, if I go, I'm just going to get attacked, or, you know, people are also, too, they're afraid of wording it wrong, too. And I feel like people also, especially who are, intellectual, like, understand things, like you're saying, should just just understand that some people might not be used to talking about something, or are new to it, or can't really explain exactly what they're trying to say. So it's just good to be able to, have a place where people can congregate safely without having to fear for, like, violence, or, everybody go after them, because we should be able to be mature enough. And like I was saying, and we were both saying, but, look at each other as an individual. Don't group someone together. And I know that's difficult, because I feel like a lot of both of our generations were raised, like we were saying, you're raised a certain way. And then we were saying how in general, though, I didn't want to cut you off, though, if you're still talking about. No, I just wanted to mention about when we were talking about just in general about racism, and how the fact that, racism is taught. It's not something you're born with, because look, there's this viral video. I love it. So cute. These a little white boy and a little black boy running to each other to hug, and then they're playing, and someone turned it around and literally flipped the image and had the white boy. It looked like he was running away from the black boy. Yeah. Like he's scared, but they were playing. He was chasing. They were playing chase. Yeah. But like it's a learned behavior, and it's a learned ignorance. And I was even telling Donta that I remember, we were talking about, Peter said he was in a place where there was you said there was a group of black people that were in the crowd as well, and a guy said, oh, they better bring the police in here, because
it was actually, it's kind of important to
right. I want you to
for when last fall, the African American community that lives in the area of Highland Avenue, etc., the north end of the city, gathered at City Council to oppose a proposal to put something like a halfway house or a treatment center in that area. And the sentiment and the way that the voices were brought forward was wonderful. There was great eloquence and there was great passion, and they believed that basically the African American community said, "We stop dumping your things in our community, you know, and put it in LaSalle, put it in DeVoe, like find another way."
It shouldn't just be there.
But what happened was there was a large gathering from the African American community, and someone sitting next to me turns around and it just says comments. They better call in some police for this, simply because the people were speaking with passion, etc. And you could just find that racism everywhere. Is that people immediately think, you know, it's embarrassing.
They thought we were going to tear up the city hall.
And gentlemen, not to steer, I'm going to steer into that subject, and I'm going to start with Donta. Donnie, where do we meet? Where does the community, meaning every ethnic? Now let's remember, it isn't just white and black.
Right.
It's white. We have a large number of people from the Middle East who've immigrated recently. Places like Yemen. We've got people from Palestine who've been allowed into our area.
Our Native American population.
Native American, Asian, etc. So we've got all these different communities or groups within our community. Where do we meet to communicate? What do we do to look at each other face to face, to watch our kids play together? Where do we meet? Have you got any ideas where we can make this go?
Well, it has to be, everyone has to have an open mind when it comes down to it. Here's the truth. When you do something different, it stretches you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We have to be willing to get out of our comfort zones. And I think I think the first meeting happens in our own heads, in our own minds, and in our own hearts, where we prepare ourselves to say, you know what, I want change. And I've learned that from a personal perspective, even dealing with the community work, is that it's not easy. You know what I mean? It's not what you're used to. You're dealing with people. And so I think if we have to get out of our own way, per se. You know what I mean?
Good point.
Out of our own thoughts and out of our own heads.
That's difficult too.
Super difficult.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if we do that first, and listen, we're here. You know what I mean? I'm very open with you know, creating whether it's media platform. I know Peter's definitely open. You know what I mean?
I love it.
And you know, I deal with it. And could be maybe a plug, but that's not, because it's just what it is. I love my second family, my Peacemaker families.
Yes.
We're very open. If there's any time that
Kemsa's
any community
involved,
members,
right? Kemsa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, he's not in the Peacemaker.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I just remember that episode where you were saying about they kept getting the name wrong here. Anyway.
So, there's plenty of space. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about the Niagara Falls Peacemakers is we're very diverse. There's blacks, there's white, there's old, there's young, there's men, there's women, there's people with disabilities. And I believe that was earlier, was that
right,
who mentioned the disabilities?
Barb,
I think that was Barb.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we talked about that before.
I talk about my son a lot too, you know what I mean? You know, this world has to become a better place. This Niagara Falls, I mean, we can talk about the world all day, but the place where I'm most vulnerable, where you know, where I decide to lay my head at night, you know what I mean?
Right.
I fight to make this a better place for my kids. I want Niagara Falls to be better than, you know, I want to leave it better than, you know, it is right now.
It is when
you know
you got here, yeah.
So where do we meet?
You know, in a COVID crisis, I could think of one thing was having a community event.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw an event one time in a community down in, I think it was in Indiana. And what they did was they had everyone in the community was welcome. And you had to make a new friend. And you had to write down you put a ballot in as to who your new friend was. And both names were on it. And if that got drawn, like they had a prize for two people who had never known each other before would split, I think it was like $5,000 or something. But
to get them to talk?
To get people to start talking to each other. Every time you made a new friend, you fill out a ballot, you put that in, you have more chances of winning.
Well,
right?
that's an initiative. Yeah, that'll give people the initiative to
Exactly. And
But hopefully people won't need money to be able to, you know what I mean? You'd hope that they'd want to
it was
explore.
kind of fun.
Right. It's fun, though.
It was kind of
Yeah,
interesting because communities can, I mean, we really do walk different sides of the streets, you know?
Right.
Like, you know what it's like. You'll walk on one side of a street and someone on the other side is eyeing you up, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Been there, done that. Got the T-shirt.
Yeah.
And the keychain.
And how do we, like,
You know what?
without
Well, we have to accept the fact that there is a problem.
Yes.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the biggest
It's
things.
still going on.
Everyone,
It's not
you go
just
to
in
an
the
AA
past.
meeting. I have never been to one before, but
I have.
from what I heard. Okay, so
Yeah.
is it not the first thing that you have to do is admit that there's a problem?
Yes.
So until
Which
we
takes
begin, it takes a
few
lot.
times. I'll tell you.
Until we admit that, you know, like for instance, for a black and a white person who want like a black guy that understands what racism feels like, and then a white person that may not quite understand or may feel that racism doesn't exist
And is ignorant, blissfully ignorant.
right,
Not even
And
intentional.
so
Yeah.
until you know, we have to get the understanding, get the education piece, and know that okay, this does exist, or let me see, you know, from a different perspective besides
Right.
my own. I think that's what's going to allow us to kind of grow and then begin the conversation.
Yeah.
What I just wanted to add about, you know, where do we meet? Well, you know, I'm going to repeat some of the things that you said, Donta, but you know, for like on a human level is definitely number one. You just got to be a person and go in with an open mind. And you know, I always say different cultures, you know, it widens our understanding, but it's also interesting. And I also think that it's cool that, you know, you could take something from each culture in a respectful way, almost, you know what I mean, to spruce up your life or make it different, or things like that. But getting out of your comfort zone is a big thing, because I wanted to bring up people who don't know me, but I am a recovering opiate addict. I had a back injury way back in 2012, and ever since then on and off, you know, have had issues. But I'm not, you know, I'm sober in recovery. I'm not. Anyway, well, that could be another topic. But no, I'm doing good. I'm in recovery, and admitting you have a problem is never. For some reason, it wasn't that hard to admit. It was just the fact of being able to get out of my comfort zone, because of my biggest fear is without any type of legal drug is it's prescription. So it's not just like it's nothing illegal, no needles, no nothing like that, no heroin. It's things that you get just from the doctors that really is killing America. But that's what I had my issue. That's what I have my issues with. But being able to get out of your comfort zone, because my fear is that I won't be happy and I'll go back into this miserable depression being just 100% sober, which I know isn't the case. But what it is it takes months for you to feel normal, because all your emotions come back too at once, which makes you crazy. But, you know, getting out of your comfort zone is so important in everything in life. Like if you want to do, travel, if you want to be somebody or do a certain job, career, you know, you have to make yourself known and get out of your comfort, you know, because that's the only way you're going to make opportunities and meet people. And I think during COVID, we can do that also online very much so. But I also think that we should be able to have at least outdoor type setting things during this time, if weather permitting and wherever you're at. But there's a lot in common. But also you said about the AA meetings though, and I've been there, and you know, many times, and it's honestly a good program just in general without the addiction part. It truly is, because and then another part is, you know, acknowledging all of the things you've done wrong to people and apologizing for them.
Right.
And it makes you think of your actions, and then when you're sober, you think about the things you did when you weren't, and you're just like, you know, you're just like, I know that's wrong. That's completely wrong. And but I will say this is just a little slightly different, but it does affect our generations. It affects every generation, actually. It's about, you know, this opiate epidemic and all of the people that are dying. I know so many people that I've been to rehab with that have died way younger than me. And a big issue is, and I just want to bring this up real quick because we'll have this for another day probably, but so Suboxone is a medicine that can It's half opiate, but the other half makes you so you can't. If you were to take an opiate, it wouldn't work and you'd get sick. It blocks your receptors, but it also tells your body that you're fine and that you're taking something. So it's like a way to step off. But many people die waiting because the waiting list for these Suboxone clinics can be months. Okay, same thing with methadone. I'm not a big fan of that, but like a lot of people die, and I believe that if we could make some type of fight for a law where if every primary doctor, when they start, when they get their degree, could have a license to prescribe Suboxone until they can get into a clinic, that would save, I would say, a good amount of people. You'd be surprised. And because it's such a bad issue, every generation, I knew an elderly woman in her 80s who had been on opiates for 40 years because of an accident, and the doctor was bad. He was, selling on a table. He got arrested, and she was withdrawing at 80 something years old from this horrible epidemic because they're getting money. They used to get paid more the more they sold back before. I know Kanye West mentioned this because he had an opiate addiction, but that's something that, like I said, that would save a lot of people. But people need to realize how, people know about drug addiction, but they still don't believe. You see these news stations when they talk about it, and they're still like, really? That's how addicting is? Really? That many people? I'm like, it's out. You should know this. It doesn't discriminate. That's one thing that doesn't discriminate. You guys know for 100% sure is drugs. Especially opiates, every single type of community, the rich, the middle, the poor class, wherever you're at. And I think that we have to really focus on our mental health and our physical health. Mm-hmm. And if we do that, we can truly come together because we don't have things messing with our heads. And we can actually be coherent and our emotions truly make us feel and understand things better too. Because if you're blocked off from a drug or just from from depression, anxiety, you're not truly taking in everything you need to know.
Right.
So, there's so much that goes into this, and I just hope that we can make a change.
Just so you know, you're not alone at the table. I was in the Addiction Research Foundation in Canada for the very same thing, because after 33 knee operations and stuff.
Right.
But so I understand where that part comes from, and you've just hit on something really good, that mental health is an issue in the city. How do we all become aware of that? And as
it's a stigma still.
As Donta said, we got to get out of our own heads, and we've got to start changing our own attitudes towards things.
We got to find ways to get out of our heads too.
Right. But stop looking at people like, we've got a lot of people on the streets right now. Where I live at 4th and Pine, there's a little park, and there's a gathering congregation there. And all of this is part of, how do we find ways to meet? How do we find ways to look at each other face to face? My brother was in AA for many, many years. He used to work with John Larroquette, who used to be on Night Court, and they would travel around doing speaking engagements. And he had the greatest line. He said, the difference between church and AA is that we can smell our hypocrites. And I thought that was a really powerful line, But and Barb Boland piped in that AA started in Akron, Ohio.
Yes, yes, it did.
And the 12 Steps and what's his name's book, and I don't mean to trivialize it at all.
No.
It's a powerful program. So
it's not for everybody, though. I will say there's other ways too.
Right.
Just because,
right? But
that's
then,
not.
So we got about 10 minutes left, 11 minutes here, and I want to pose to each of you, maybe like we split it up, but. Donta, what would be one change in this city right now, okay, if you had the power to change something? It could be economic, it could be emotion, it could be people, it could be a school thing. Is there something you think right now that if we could change it would make a difference in bringing this community, healing this community together?
One word really resonates is empathy.
Yes.
If I could place empathy in every last individual, then I believe that this whole universe could change. Because what happens is, if I empathize with you, I'm willing to put myself in your shoes to understand why you may think the way you think. If your thought process is different than mine, and that's another thing I like to kind of chime in there real quick. I don't need cosigners. I don't always want to be the smartest person in the room. I don't need everybody to agree with everything that I say. So my thing is that I know people are going to think different, and that's why I'm always open for, that good dialogue. But empathy that would be the main thing. I think because we have too much apathy. We have too much. People just don't care. People feel how they feel and just screw everybody else because you don't think how I think. Or you know what I mean? And that's,
we can't all think the same, and if we did, we'd be in like an ant colony in a horrid world.
Right. So that would be my answer. If I had a power, my power would be able to insert empathy in everyone, so people could actually, be willing to again get outside of your own head and understand others. You know what I mean? Or maybe their struggle or why they feel the way they feel.
Well, it's funny that you brought that up. But before we cut over to you, Johnny,
because I agree.
That tied into what Johnny said about mental illness and addiction and the things that befall people, and that empathy goes a long way in helping us understand people. That's good. I embrace that one.
Yeah, I can't think of another. I'm trying to think of another word. I mean, that one I agree with 100% because that is basically the start of a change. Let me think. I wish people would have, I guess, like I would say empathy is the most important. And then, another thing, I wouldn't say it's the second most important, but another thing would be that more education, more knowledge, or more self-realization in this fact of knowledge, like taking the time to, not everybody has to be a journalist, I understand that, but like taking the time to look at the other side, the other people's opinions, or the other side of the opposite of what you are. Take time to look at both sides of an issue in general. It could go for anything, and just to educate yourselves more, to understand that the reason we have different views and is because we all live different lives and we all experience different things, and our experiences do make us different. And I think empathy is a good thing, because I always hear a lot of people sometimes that'll say, on both sides, they'll say, well, we can't share the experience of growing up because we had different experiences growing up. But it's like, well, let's share them, though. Since we didn't share them, we should share them. So maybe that, besides knowledge, like being open-minded and also like being able to be open to share the things that make, we were talking about this, I think 2 weeks ago, about the things that make your flaws, to bring them up almost is a way of opening up too, if you get to know someone and being able to talk to each other about the things you'd like to change and the things that are you're strong with. So, but like I'd say knowledge and having an open mind and being able to like express yourself truly without any fear. So
could I offer you one from my perspective, which
Yes.
actually comes from Canada? I grew up in Toronto, and I traveled most of my life in theater orchestras and stuff like that, and music bands. But I lived in Toronto most of my life. I've lived in Vancouver. I've lived in London, or stayed in London. And I've been to New York City. I've been to Washington. All of those cities have public transit. When I grew up in Toronto, for a while I worked at a university, and I would travel downtown by taking what's called GO Transit. They now run from Niagara Falls, Canada, up to Toronto. But I would take GO Transit and then link up with the Toronto Transit Commission, which is the buses, subways, streetcars, etc. they operate in Toronto. And I was in Canada, in Toronto. Public transit is absolutely common. Here in Western New York, in Buffalo, Niagara, people will not get out of their cars. When I first moved here in 2002, I had no idea Buffalo had a subway. In fact, I first discovered it in 2013 when my wife said, well, why don't you take the subway down? So I was doing a project on Main Street. And I got on the subway here, and I've ridden buses here. And I'm very comfortable on buses. Americans don't like buses. They don't like public transit unless you're in those massive cities. But what I learned when I was on public transit in Toronto, I am used to a kaleidoscope around me, a smorgasbord of every race, culture, creed.
Right.
Every creation God made is on that train or on that bus. And you don't even think about it. There's people from India and people from Asia.
until someone makes a point of it.
Well, no, until you
Right.
even just become cognizant. You're
Right.
just used to it. And when I got here, I noticed there was one predominant group on the buses and one predominant group on the subways. At one point, I counted myself as the only person who wasn't African American on the subway. And it's because public transit here is not the same. It's
No.
almost like relegated to an economics.
It's looked down upon for some reason.
And when here in Western New York, people ride around in their cars. They don't talk to other people, or they're not in proximity to other people. Do you know what it means to get on a subway car and to smile at somebody, or to offer up your seat?
That can change your whole day and mood.
It can. And you meet people who are, you don't meet them. You really don't talk to people on subways or trains that often, but people are comfortable with each other because we are different. You never notice the difference because we all rode public transit to get into Toronto. We rode it to get anywhere we went to go. We were going to the theater. We were going to the movies, and as kids, that's how we traveled. I didn't have a car. We traveled on the subways and the buses that ran in our neighborhood to connect us. And I notice here that we lack that. We lack a common area where we realize we're all, like, where we get used to being different. And instead, what we've got is an entire population that rides around in cars, isolated in these cars, one person, two persons, and that's your world, and you just don't see anything else. And so with that stigma attached to public transit here, and it's unfortunate, I think we lose the community feel that I remember growing up with in Toronto.
You know what? It's funny that you speak of community, because that was one of the things that was just ringing in my head. Even with how John, he had mentioned how he said blacks and whites had very different experiences, and men and women too. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's why the conversation should happen, because here's the thing, there's such a stereotype concerning, with people in general. People have their own stereotypes concerning other people. Honestly, like, I would love to talk about my upbringing. I would love to talk about my community.
That's very important.
It wasn't
you as a person.
We weren't just gang ridden and violence and just
that's
and
grouping,
slums and whatever. It wasn't that wasn't even who we were or what we come from.
Where did you grow up? Like when you were a kid?
I was in the North End. In the North End. I grew up on Center Avenue, Garden Avenue, and Unity Park, which is now Cornerstone. That was like a lot of my childhood, and then I moved to Western Avenue, and then I graduated and went off on my own and tried to be the adult, tried to be this
in Niagara Falls.
Right. So yeah, aside from 2.5 years that I lived in Grand Island and the 3 months that I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, every other moment of my life was lived here in Niagara Falls, and I'm cool with it. You know what I mean? Because we had the village back then. You know what I mean? We had community back then. You know what I mean? There were people that like they really looked out, and that's what I'm fighting to bring back now, really, because we've lost it.
I think the city entirely has lost that community feel.
There's no because you know what, a lot of elderly people are scared as well, because there's a different level of upbringing than it was when I was a kid. You know what I mean? There's you were held accountable to a handful of people in the community. Yep. There was no, you know what I mean?
Kids are in a bubble now, and that's not good. We can talk about that next week too, because that's a big thing I have a problem with.
Yeah. So so my thing is we have to have an open conversation. We have to be able to have that dialogue, because because some people would like to hear and understand, like, wow, okay.
Gotta find a place or make a place where that's the place to go. You go there to meet new friends, new people, and then that's where you could start this kind of thing.
That's it. We're opening Cheers.
Yes.
You want to go where everybody knows your name.
We do need to have some type of place, because this place, I mean, especially for teens and kids even, there's no place to gather in a safe way. And that was an issue too when I was growing up. But yeah, we definitely just need a place.
There's a place on Main Street called, I think it's called the Connection or something.
Connection, yeah.
They do a good job.
Is it recently? Has it been around, or?
It's been around a few years.
A few years now. Yeah.
Now is that like a what kind of place?
Kind of a homework drop-in center.
Okay, so like like
It's
a homework.
definitely-
Oh, okay,
yeah.
drop in, like so you could just go and.
Yeah,
The
kind of
kids go.
kids go. And
Oh,
then you
okay,
just
yeah.
kinda
Now we
parlay.
just got to make one for like adults or we just
We
really.
need a drop. We need a
We need a
daycare.
drop. Yeah,
Yeah, we
absolutely.
really do. This could be a place where we can actually make things happen in our city. You know.
Well, this is the idea of tonight's program, and I wanted just to talk to everybody who is
Yes.
watching or will be watching if they tune in. Donta Myles is one of the most effective people I've ever met at connecting other people, and
Thank you, sir.
I am blessed to have him working with me on the idea of this facility that we built. And really, you don't get an idea of how big it is when we're broadcasting, but we can do a lot in here. We teach groups of kids. We call them the yo-yos because of the Yowawa youth, and we're hoping to expand that when the building is open again, that we can bring other kids in and train them. We've got broadcast facilities. So with Donta, I've engaged Donta to start looking for people within all of our communities. It could be African American. It could be a Jewish group. I know we have a Jewish community here. Anyone who
Sikhs,
has a
too.
voice, Sikhs.
I love them. Those are my people.
Satsuriya Kalji. I greet my Sikh friends
That's right.
all the time. I've been to the Punjab. I've been to
Oh
India.
yeah, I
And,
went there every Sunday.
Oh well, I went to India and visited the area the Sikhs are from,
nice.
and it's almost the heartland or the heart of India, their agricultural area. But
I also, real quick, I also have the Polish community in Buffalo and Niagara Falls too.
Right.
That Dingus Day, that's a very big thing still going
Dzień
on.
dobry.
That is, it's celebrated by everyone. It's almost
Right.
like another St. Patrick's Day, so it's another day for people
you
to
bet your
to
dupa
party.
on that.
I love dupa with the the guys hit the girls with the pussy wills and the guys get the
Yeah.
girls with water, but now it's their water guns.
Yep,
It's a good time.
I know. They've kind of advanced.
It's
but
fun.
as I was saying, I've engaged Donta as a leader in the community to help us use this facility for people to talk. We have great shows. I'm not trying to pitch anything. Last night, Tessa Del Zoppo's show has, as of 4 o'clock today, she had 27,000 views.
Wow.
You imagine
Right.
that? And she is interviewing Hollywood stars from The Sopranos and everything, and she is wonderful. And we've got John Rustino. He has one of the most balanced shows I've ever seen. He's very well spoken. He's got Citizens United. Edge of the Falls was what started it, and yeah, we're still pissing people off. And, that's the cool thing.
That'll happen here and there,
And-
but guess what? Everybody's entitled to it.
But it's free speech.
Right.
I may
That's-
oppose someone, but you will never see me with my colleague, the
Yeah.
Madman. I will never silence anyone because
Free
it's
speech is
free
so important,
speech.
and that is also in jeopardy in the way the world's going too.
Well,
It's
that's
always
just
so
it.
important.
No one wants to listen.
Right.
You know? So
Right.
the reason I got onto this little tangent, pardon me, as we kind of head into the end of the show, is that if you're out there and you want to come on this show on Friday night, there's room.
Yeah.
I would love to have a woman come on the show.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, Noelle, Courtney, if you're ever available too, love
Well,
to have you.
They have their show on
Right.
Sunday night, and it's focused on comedy. But
if they wanted to talk about a serious
can
women's
come.
issue too.
but anyone else,
Anyone,
Anyone, yeah.
message
Yeah.
message Peter Green, Donta, or myself.
yeah, any of us.
Could be whenever.
Absolutely.
And then there are so many things we can do, and people just, I find that that's what's been missing in this community. We don't have the voices. We don't have the means of allowing the voices to be heard.
No platform. This is a wonderful platform.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And so now what we've got is that Donta is someone that I really am glad is part of this.
I'm very glad.
Yeah, because you are a community leader.
Appreciate that,
You
man.
could do an entire show on the Is it the
Peacemakers.
Peacemakers?
Okay, so this is how we do it. Because I always tell, because they're like, okay, is it peacemaker or is it peacekeeper? So we got to make the peace, and then we're going to keep the peace. So we're going to be the peacemakers.
What
So
were
we're the
people
peacemakers.
saying it was?
Peacekeepers.
Yeah,
I
I would
did
think
it tonight.
See, I
You
would
go
think
back.
peacemakers. I've never heard of peacekeepers, so I would think just peacemakers in general. That would be it.
Well, I tell everybody, because I have
That's a good saying, though.
American bully. I say, we're the peacemakers, but he's the peacekeeper. So
That's a beautiful dog, too. But yeah, I would like if there's something that could be done where the peacemakers want to have some type of outreach.
we'd love to. We definitely
Yeah,
love to.
this
And we can
facility
promote
is
that.
wide open for that.
Appreciate
because,
it, man.
But no, it's not. It's not us. It's the fact that we've been fortunate, and I will tell you, Ohio Barb and some others, Ohio Barb especially, has really helped build this
Yes,
place.
we love you, Barb. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Barb is wonderful.
Yes.
And she, the reason why everyone is behind it is because we want the community to start talking and listening.
We need
and
it.
now, even if you don't, you might, Patty might need a ride. We'll come get you, Patty. I know Barb will.
No, we could plan it.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And even if it's only 10 people listening right now,
Right.
down the line, more people are going to be listening.
Hopefully
you
they'll
can
watch.
be on this show. Come and yell and scream, or come and voice your frustration.
Or if you can't get here, call us when we're here.
We make it happen.
Because we would love to talk. And what you just said though, Peter, that's what I've been missing out on too. Is besides anything else in my life, is having a platform where people in my city we can actually talk and get things done, hopefully, or just be able to express ourselves. This is a great platform for that.
Do you know what you did tonight took a lot of courage, Johnny?
Thank you.
You admitted to your past experience with opiates. And a lot of other people in our community are battling that battle. Amy Spillman piped in about going through the withdrawal. It's rough, man, and then you can do it.
It's worse than pneumonia, I'll say that for me.
I you know what's funny? I have to say, I just had another knee replacement with it was like a 5-hour surgery. So they gave me pain meds afterwards, and I go through withdrawal when I'm done.
I give you great credit, and I just want to say that's what I'm saying is a lot of addicts do anything to get the drug because they're that afraid of the withdrawal.
Right.
Not because they're just scumbags and they want to steal. That's literally the biggest reason, I would say, from my personal opinion. But yeah, that's also something that we need to talk about in the city as well, because I know that's an issue too, like everywhere. But I'm very happy for this platform. I'm glad Dante's here. I'm glad I got this opportunity so much.
Absolutely.
I'm so thankful for it.
And our good friend
Helps me out,
Kemsa
too.
Musa is probably going to be involved with
Yes.
Donta.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
We've got to get the voices out there. And I'll tell you, I might be among the minority, or I might be among the majority, but I would love to have a program with the African American community that I could listen more and learn more. I used to.
I would too. I'd love
watched
to watch.
so many documentaries and read so many books on the history of people like, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Reverend Jesse Jackson. And then recently, I've read a lot on the Black Panther movement, and I was able to learn a lot about that.
Right.
But what I learned more from you last week, Dante, or 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about what the difference is, and you pointed out that you don't have the history that the ancestry we do.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to divide us by that color, but
And literally,
the biggest thing
like
is really just getting the information. And my dad always tell me, he said, God gave us 2 of these and 1 of these for a reason. So my thing is that I should be listening twice as much as I'm talking. Sometimes that doesn't work with me because I can talk a lot.
Me neither.
But however, it's information that's real. It's realistic. It's our lives. This is a life that I have to live. So
that's closure too. Also to find that,
and sometimes people need to hear it from just a really raw perspective,
right?
In order to really grasp the understanding of why I'm so passionate about what I do. Aside from the fact that I do what I do for the basic sake of my kids' future,
right?
But aside from that,
as a person and as a person of color,
being able to give people an understanding of hey, this is real. This is not something that
you read about.
I conjured up, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, I'm gonna start just talking about race issues. It's like, no, this is a reality.
If it affects you in today's day and age, then you have every right.
Yeah.
Always.
But I appreciate it, man. I definitely appreciate being here, man. And like I said, I know my Peacemaker family will be more than. Of course, I don't make them. Oh, you'll love them. They're like my second family. Of course, I don't make the decisions. However, I can guarantee you they'll be more than happy to do this. But of course, we have a core team that we bring everything to.
We'll bribe them with food or something. Now.
Yeah, but no, they wouldn't. Because because what happens is we do understand that, that there's a voice that has to be resonated in the community and really inserted and pumped into our community from all walks of life. You know what I mean? So, and there's not one person, although we're different. Our ocular view may look different. However, we're all the human race. We're
Right.
still
God
one
made
person.
God made us different, so if we all look the same and held the same culture, what kind of, it's meant to be this way. We are
Yeah.
meant to have different races and cultures.
Absolutely, and that's what makes this world better.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? And I think that's the part that I want people to really, hear. If you haven't heard anything that I've said, you know what I mean. Understand that we're all different for a reason, and because we're different, that we have to know that we're supposed to be different.
Right, and
we're
that
not
it's
robots.
okay.
This is not the Matrix.
Right. There's certain things where, it's okay to be different, but at the end of the day, we're human and we all are the same rate. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I understand what you're
Right.
saying.
I mean,
exactly.
yeah, our different,
Exactly.
like Rob was saying earlier. Not Rob. Ooh, I'm sorry. John. That's the
Johnny,
wrong brother.
No.
What he was saying earlier is like, we all have different experiences.
Right.
So for us to come together and share those experiences and understand each other from a different perspective, and guess what? And respect each other out of love at the end, because love has to be, the foundation of why we come together anyway. You know what I mean?
Correct.
If we're
Amen.
not coming together for the sake of love and for the sake of peace and for the sake of understanding and for the sake of being able to exist around each other in harmony and in unity, and because then that's when things can change. Then your burden becomes my burden. That's why I always say that, especially in the Peacemaker family. You know what I mean? Hey, we may not agree on everything, but sometimes I don't want to just work with you just because we have common interests or common grounds for something. I want to get to know about you, because guess what? Something that you may deal with, I may not have to deal with, but because I understand how piss poor that situation that you're dealing with, that might become my burden. And I'll be able to say, you know what? That's not right, and I'm gonna fight with you on this. Although I don't have to deal with it on my on a personal level,
The empathy of understand. Right. Exactly.
So that's me. So I appreciate it. I really do. I love this place, man. This is like my another home to me. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you, Preet, man.
It's such a good way. It's so nice to be able to voice your opinion in a place where you can talk about things and not have emotion get the best of you always. And it's very therapeutic, I think, for both of us and for Peter as well. I think
Always.
this is very. For
No
everybody
judgment.
that does any show with Yowawa Media, I believe it's a very loving and fun place where you can actually just talk and, have a moment.
We don't believe in censorship. We don't believe
Right.
in.
No.
You know what's funny? We have mute buttons on every microphone. If we want, we can cut someone off.
Right.
We've never used.
No. Everybody's entitled to
No,
that.
I know. We've
Oh.
never used it. I was.
You want to go, Peter? No.
No. It's great. But that's the point. Is that people expressing a point, and I give Brett, the madman, the same thing, is that he understands that, and sometimes he gets passionate, but he always allows people to express their point of view,
Right.
and that's good, because you can't be in this room or
No, I
this
respect-
environment
yeah.
without that openness to the fact that it might upset you. Find out why it upset you.
Yeah.
Right.
Gain the empathy to understand.
Because you
it.
can't, you have to be able to take the other person's word without, you can't have someone on, especially either if you're going to just say what you need to say. As long as you give them the opportunity, then that's
Right.
all you can ask, I guess.
What
right?
made someone say that?
Right.
And if you learn more about them, maybe you'll find out that they're not speaking from anger or hatred. They're speaking from pain or loss or something.
Yes,
like
or
that,
misunderstanding, or they were taught a certain thing too that just stuck with them for so long. So it's very complex, but hopefully
And
we can.
Experience.
Yeah,
Oh.
experience.
I
How
have
about
to
that?
pipe in. John Ristino, who hosts Citizens United, he had a caller on Wednesday, and he says, "I almost did Wednesday with the mute button." But even then, we can find ways to without having to without suppressing opinions.
Right,
We can do that.
exactly, in a nice way.
Both of you gentlemen, I am honored that you come in tonight, and look for us every Friday now. And
right.
with
Friday at
with-
7 p.m.
we may call it Niagara Voices.
We're
If you
still
can come up with
deciding,
a
yeah.
better name.
I'm gonna draw and make something special for it.
Make
so
us
we'll figure
a
it out.
logo. That
Yeah,
would be
that's what I'd love
great.
to do. Yeah, and a
All
theme
right.
color. No,
Thank you.
I'm getting out.
Thank you, both gentlemen, Donta and Johnny, great
Pleasure.
just having open conversation. Everyone who's out there, Patty and John and Robin and
Yes,
and
thank you for
Barb
talking
and-
with us.
If we, and
Absolutely.
Amy, and if we didn't know you were on and we didn't say your name, because it's like romper room.
Yes, sorry
You know,
if we
Kyle,
didn't.
Venetia, I see.
Right. Also, if you guys that are watching now could share this, that'd be great. Get us out there. I'm gonna leave in the comments. I'm gonna leave my social media because I'll keep posting about I'm gonna keep posting about it. I'm also gonna link Yo Wawa Media as well.
Thank you. And Justin Rolf. Pardon me. I'm
right.
back here. He gave us a great comment I'm going to use to close tonight, and it's that race doesn't define us. Everyone has something to offer. It's what you make of it.
100%.
And God doesn't make junk. Remember that.
Right.
God made good
Thank you,
people
Patty.
in all of us. All right.
Yes.
And John Rustino still in there doing the romper room. Gentlemen,
Yes.
let's have a great night. And
Yes. Have a wonderful
we'll be back
weekend,
next
everybody.
week. Thanks, everyone.
Yes. Thank you. Take care.